Good evening, sports card fans. Beantown 62 here with you live from Abilene, Texas, where we have ourselves a very special episode of Moa's YouTube channel. We are going to be doing the Easton Manhattan Project. I'd say live, but it's not really live because it's recorded. And so, what is the Easton Manhattan Project? Well, if you don't know what the Manhattan Project is, and my guess is a few out there that don't, but the Manhattan Project was the research and development of the atomic bomb during the Second World War was codenamed the Manhattan Project for secrecy reasons. And so, thus, the Manhattan Project I have chosen for my name because of the secrecy that lies within the days and days and days of research that Beantown 62 has done for this presentation tonight. And what we are going to be doing tonight, being there's been so much lively discussion regarding the Hall of Fame and the selections for the Hall of Fame and the YouTube selections for the Hall of Fame. It's just been such an exciting 2 weeks watching everybody just strut their stuff and put it out on the line to give their opinions. Opinions are great, are they not? But somebody told me that opinions are like sphincters. Everybody's got one, and to most people, they probably stink. So with that, we are going to try to present a little factual information regarding the Hall of Fame. And so I have done some research, and Beantown 62 is a numbers guy, so that's just me. I'm a spreadsheet numbers guy. I'm a project manager. I estimate, I do what I do, and I love spreadsheets. And so when we start talking Hall of Fame, and we start talking, I've watched some really great live stream tubes of what everybody's opinion is of who the next person should be coming into the Hall of Fame, and should it be this person, should it be that person. And yes, we have all had a lot of fun at Harold Baines' expense, as everybody, it seems, thinks that Harold Baines is not worthy of being in the Hall of Fame. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to actually look at some numbers. I'm going to tell you a little bit of story before we get looking at numbers. Regarding numbers, my number 3 son, baseball player, played college ball. But back when he was in high school in Sedalia, Missouri, he was on a select travel team, Premier League team, and his coach was Brian McRae from the Kansas City Royals. Brian McRae and I got to talk quite a bit, got to go around with him. Every weekend for probably 3 years we played with Brian. And we did a lot of talking. And at the end of 3 years, and Jimmy, was coming into his senior year, and we were actually getting ready to leave Missouri, I sat down and had breakfast with Brian, and we talked about Jimmy and getting selected for a college and why, I was confused as to why nobody liked Jimmy Roach, or nobody was interested in offering Jimmy Roach a scholarship. So I sat down with Brian and I said, Brian, I've kept track of the numbers from your team, and I sit down and I do what we do. We go to a game, we plot down the hits, and we keep score of the game. And I had spreadsheets and I put it all together. And within Brian's program, there's 3 different teams. I knew that Jimmy Roach had the highest slugging percentage, and not just by a little bit. When you're at like 1275, there's nobody close to you. He hit more home runs, more doubles, more triples. Killed the ball. He was a hitting machine. And so for me, I was confused as to why he wasn't getting a lot of looks. And Brian McRae said something to Beantown 62 that just blew my mind. Brian McRae looked me right in the eyes and said, Jim, it doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter how many home runs he hits. It doesn't matter what his slugging percentage is. What's got to happen is somebody has got to like him. Somebody's got to like him. So there you have it, folks. It's not what you do, or is it what you do? It's not what you do on the field, but somewhere along the line, someone has to look at you and has to like you. And there was guys on our team that were getting scholarship offers that weren't half the hitter that he was, But guess what? Somebody liked them. And so within our selection for the Hall of Fame, it comes down to really, do we like a player or do we not like a player? Well, again, that's just not Beantown style, because Beantown believes that these players got into the Hall of Fame for more than some sports writer liking them and casting a vote for them, or the competition committee made up of past players casting a vote. Beantown 62 would like to think that it's your whole pile of work that you amassed during your career, and there's just so many numbers and stats. Baseball is all about numbers and stats. That's what I believe the game is about. And so when I approach the Hall of Fame, I look at numbers. I want to look at all of the players' numbers. So what I have done is I have gone in and I have pulled out all of the position players from the Hall of Fame. And that would give me 159 position players, pulling out the pitchers, not including the pitchers, the managers. And of course, there's a lot of Negro League players that I wish I had their stats. I would have pushed to put them in there. But again, I could not readily get their stats, so I did not include them. And I got us basically down to, our positions on the field. 8 positions on the field minusing the pitcher, and I have painstakingly gone through and I have come up with a list of all of these players, and I have gone through and I have come up with a formula to try to calculate a total number to put a value to each player. And so what I have put into this is I have put into things like their batting average, and I have taken their batting average and assigned a number and put a multiplier with it. And again, I have gone in there and I included total hits times 1.25. And then I went in and I included doubles times 2. I went in and included triples times 3. I included home runs times 4. And then I went in and I included bases on balls, total bases on balls times 1. And then I went in and put strikeouts in. Strikeouts being whatever your number was. If it was 700, it would show up as a minus 700. So between your balls and your strikeouts, you'd either end up with a positive number or a negative number. And then I went in and I put in your on-base percentage. And so these were the numbers that I used to calculate this number, because what we're talking about here is hitters hitting the ball in the Hall of Fame. And so with that, I know there's people that are in the Hall for defensive purposes. My man over here, Jimmy Collins, revolutionized the third base position when he played. He was the first person to play up on the grass and take away a bunt, not allow teams to put down a bunt. The Red Sox were playing the Yankees one time, and he basically had 6 straight players try to put down a bunt, fielded each one of them, threw the ball over to first and got them out before they finally stopped trying to bunt the ball, and he made them swing the bat. So Jimmy Collins revolutionized his position at third base. And so again, he's not in there just for his hitting, but he's in there for other reasons. Those reasons, though, are very, very difficult to quantify. And what we're trying to quantify is, as a hitter, who are the greatest hitters in the Hall of Fame? And so with that, Beantown 62 has put together a formula, and we have applied that formula to all of the hitters in the Hall of Fame. And so the first thing I'm going to show you is a list of players. And in this list of players, they are put in here, and I have accumulated a total for these players to say who is really the best of the best within the Hall of Fame. And I want to say that each one of these players in here has, again, they're Hall of Famers. And so we're trying to take a group of players and say, okay, who's the top and who's the bottom? But the bottom guy is still a Hall of Famer and deserves the respect of being a Hall of Famer. And so with that, we have our list. And in going in here, I am going to scroll my little list up to you, and I am going to show you, again, you're going to start seeing some numbers. There we go. We focus in. The number 1 player in the Hall of Fame is Stan Musial, Stan the Man. He amassed 10,444 points using the formula that I put in. Number 2 on the list, Hank Aaron at 10,313. Babe Ruth, number 3 at 9,823. Then we got Ty Cobb, Tris Speaker, Ted Williams, Willie Mays, Carl Yastrzemski, Lou Garrett, Mel Ott, Frank Robinson, George Brett, Eddie Murray, Honus Wagner, Cap Anderson, Jimmy Fox, Rogers Hornsby, Lloyd Wagner, Paul Warren, Eddie Collins. And that kind of makes up the top 20. And as you can see, we're at 7,000 points, and you can go down this list. There's Ken Griffey Jr. at 7,672 in the 25th position. The best shortstop on the list, Chipper Jones, 26th position, 7,651. And I also want to say that for each position in baseball, again, there's defensive positions such as shortstop and catcher that again, their numbers just are not going to be what a center fielder or a left fielder or a right fielder or a third baseman, guys that are paid to hit the ball. So for Chipper Jones to be that high up, Cal Ripken Jr. is up there in the 22nd position. For those guys to be that high up there, they were phenomenal players at their position. There's Winfield, there's Frank Thomas, 28th position, Molitor, Knapp, Simons, Wade Boggs, Goslin, and you go down here, Tony Gwynn, Joe Morgan, Mickey Mantle, Sam Crawford, there's Yount, Hilleman, Vladimir Guerrero, Sam Rice, Joe DiMaggio in the 43rd position, which may be surprising to you, but that's going to lead me into another. That's going to lead me to another little segue here. Frisch, Roger Connors, and then we come back up to the top of the list, and there is our man, really been the man of the last 6 months, it seems, since I've been on here, Mr. Harold Baines. Mr. Harold Baines has 6,830 points, and out of all of the Hall of Famers, Harold Baines is in the 47th position of amassing points, again, just based on hitting, and he was a DH, and I understand that. So, again, Harold Baines is in that 47th position, and again, these go on, and you start looking at the players underneath Mr. Baines: Eddie Matthews, Jeff Bagwell, Mike Schmidt, Jim Thome, Brooks Robinson, Tim Raines, Andre Dawson, Roberto Clemente, Rod Carew, Willie McCovey, Eno Slaughter, and again, there's Killebrew, there's Mize. You go down here, there's Reggie Jackson in the 75th position at 6,000 points. You go down through this list, and you're starting to see a list of players, and we get over to the third column in here. We got Sewell in here, Carlton Fisk, Jim Rice, Cepeda, Brock, Piazza. Again, the list goes on and on and on. Aparicio, there's Sandberg, there's Ozzie, there's Gary Carter. So this is where these players are falling with the numbers that they amassed during their careers for, again, we're talking hitting here, guys. We're talking hitting. There's Elmer Flick, and we're getting down into, again, some lower numbers. Again, all Hall of Famers. There's Pee Wee Reese, Phil Rizzuto in here, Joe Tinkler. Most of these names, Campanella. Some of these players you may not even know: Frank Chance, Ray Schleck. And there's Monte Irvin with 2,742 points, bringing up the rear of the pack. And so, okay, I could stop here and say, okay, there it is. There's the players that amassed the greatest totals, but Beantown 62 is really not that way. There's a lot that goes into amassing totals, and a lot of that has to do with how many years did a player play. And again, so just because Stan Musial has 10,444 points, well, how many years did Stan the Man play? I believe Stan the Man played for 24 years, somewhere in there. And so those players with the bigger points obviously played a lot longer than some of the other players. And there's one player on this list I want you to see, and I'm going to take it back over here, and I'm going to go down to number 134. There is Jackie Robinson, and Jackie Robinson is my example of a player that really, because he's 134th on the list, is that a real good indication of who Jackie Robinson is? So as I was doing this, I said, you know what, I'm not going to say that that's a good indication. So what I went and did is I went and said, okay, how many points per year average did a player amass? And so that's going to tell me the greatest players in the game by their yearly production for their career. And so, like I said, we have Harold Baines in the 47th position with 6,830 points. But Harold Baines played the game for 22 years. And so in 22 years, he didn't have any injuries. He just kind of played. You know, another thing to point out on this list, you'll see these little orange spots on here. What that means is those are players that sacrificed, 1, 2, 3 years of their career to military service. Ted Williams, 3 years. Stan Musial, I believe, was 1 year. So when you see all of these names, these are players that had military service that lost up to 3 years. So Ted Williams in the 6th position gave up 3 years, in the prime of his playing career, gave up 3 years of his life, and he still amassed enough numbers to be in the 6th position. That is just phenomenal that he's there. And again, Stan Musial, I believe, lost 1 year of his playing career to military service, but still is at the very top of the list, which is very, very impressive. So the next list I'm going to show you is a list of players that again, this is the average number of points per year. So this is taking into consideration that some players only played 10 years versus the players that played 27 years. So it's not really fair to compare those two players. So Beantown 62 went and did another list. And so this is a list of per year who amassed the best numbers per year. And so we're going to come up and we're going to look at this list right here. And number 1 on the list is Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio, again, only played 12 years, I believe. Joe DiMaggio amassed 530 points per year. So Joe DiMaggio was the most productive player in baseball on average for the Hall of Famers. Number 2, Lou Gehrig. Then you got Ralph Kiner. You got Ted Williams at number 4. Stan Musial at number 5. And there's my man, Jackie Robinson. So Jackie Robinson has now gone, again, from like 134th. Now he's jumped up to position 6 on the list because Jackie Robinson was a man. He was a ball player. But again, Jackie Robinson lost a lot of his playing career, gave up his playing career because he couldn't play in the Major League Baseballs until they allowed him in. Of course, we know he broke the color barrier. We got him in here. And so for the 10 years that Jackie Robinson played, he amassed an average of 468 points per year, which makes him one of the greatest players that ever played the game. And then Earl Averill, and you got Hank Aaron there. There's Babe Ruth at 9. And you're getting in some interesting players. Jeff Bagwell at number 10, 444 points per year. Kirby Puckett at 11, Sizer at 12, Vladimir Guerrero at 13. As you can see, this list is totally, totally changed. There's Mize Speaker. There's Willie Mays. As you're going down this list, there's Wade Boggs at 26th position, Ty Cobb 27, Goslin 28, my man Billy Dorr at 31. There's Chipper Jones at 32, Jimmy Fox at 35. There's Eddie Matthews at 38. Thomas is at 41. There's Mel Ott. There's Yaz drops down to the 45th position when we go by year because, again, Yaz had a pretty long career. There's Duffy, Cepeda, Slaughter, Boudreaux, my man. There's Snyder, Appling. As you can see, there's Joe Morgan, Yogi Berra, Johnny Bench, McKee, Roslin. There's Eddie Collins, Joe Cochran, Nellie Fox. There's Larkin right there, Aparicio. And there's our boy, Harold Baines, sitting at the 118th position out of the 159. So Harold Baines has now moved from the top third to the top of the bottom third in players. Dawson, there's Henderson. Again, and this is yearly production for players. There's Reggie Jackson, there's Tomei, Ozzie Smith, there's Ivan Rodriguez, Carter, Killebrew, Brooks Robinson, Pee Wee Reese. Here we go in here. We come back to the third column. There's Pops right there, Stargell, Ward Mazeroski, Rick Feller. Again, there's Fisk. And so you get down there, but there's Ray Schock at the bottom again. So now you get a look at the players going by the year and how great their production was. And so you can see this list is kind of flip-flopped at the top. And so now we have different players in here. Now you'd have to say Joe DiMaggio had amassed the greatest number of points per year. As a hitter, he was the man. And so, again, what I have done in here is I've now got myself 2 lists. And so I've said, okay, on these 2 lists now, we have 2 separate lists. So what's the best way to say, okay, who is the best hitter? Because, again, we have players that had great longevity, and we have players that didn't have longevity, but their yearly numbers were good. And so what Beantown 62 decided to do was take an average of those 2 lists and average them all out and come up and see where everybody lies. And so with that, I'm going to go to the third list I produced out of all my research. As you see, I haven't done any videos because I've been busy doing this. And I know this video is getting a little long. I hope it's interesting, and I hope you find it interesting. So again, here's list number 3. And so in list number 3, this is the average of those two lists. So back to number 1 goes Stan Musial, as he averaged 3.5 because he was in position 1 on the first list, and he was in position 5 on the second list, so he averaged 3.5. In the second position, Ted Williams with a 5, tied with Ted Williams, becomes Hank Aaron. Then you have Gehrig below Hank Aaron at number 4, and then you have Babe Ruth at number 5 with a 6. So there you have 5 players in the Hall of Fame that are averaging less than a 10, which means, again, they're averaging above a 10 on both of those lists. And Beantown 62 would tell you, this is my opinion, that those 5 players are the Hall of Fame gods. They are the gods of the Hall of Fame. Those 5 players have put themselves above with their numbers, each and every player. And again, we're talking about hitting right now. We're talking about being a hitter, not a fielder, not anything else but a hitter. So then you can see Willie Mays in there, Ty Cobbs. There's DiMaggio at the 9th position, and Gehrig comes in at 24. Jimmy Fox up there at 11. Mel Ott. Now Jazz kind of jumps back up on the list because he was so high on list 1. There's Guerrero, Warner, Robinson, Wade Boggs, Chipper Jones, George Brett in the 20th position. There's Eddie Murray at the 22nd position, Bags underneath him. Honus Wagner, there's Frank Thomas. And again, there's Mickey Mantle down in the 30th position. There's Ripken, there's Mize. And so you can see I'm going to roll this list. There's Caline, there's Connor, Hornsby, there's Tony Gwynn there, Molitor, Ken Griffey Jr., Sewell. And so we come up to the column number 2. There's Frisch, there's Winfield, there's Yount, Schmidt, Ernie Banks, Roberto Alomar, going through the great players going through here. Collins, Clemente, Puckett, Biggio, Billy Hamilton, Bobby Doerr. And we come down, there's Greenberg at 69.5 average on the list. There's Jackie Robinson, average between his 2 positions, 70. Cap Anderson, Ricky Henderson, Harry Hooper, Carew. And then we get down, there's Herman, there's Jim Rice, Slaughter, and then there is Harold Baines at 82.5. If you take an average of 3.5 and then you go to the bottom of the list, which the bottom of the list is 158.5, you will come up with an 81 or an 80. I think it's 80.1. So Mr. Harold Baines at 82.5 is just below the top 50% of the Hall of Fame in his numbers, his career numbers. And again, we're accounting for not only his longevity, but his production per year as a hitter. And so below Mr. Baines, you'll see Sandberg, Piazza, Dotson, Cronin, Keeler. And you go into the next column, you'll see some great players over here. Duke Snider, Jim Thome, Yogi Berra, Hugh Duffy, Orlando Cepeda, Frank Baker, Brooks Robinson. There's McCovey going through the list. There's Larkin, Killebrew. There's Jimmy Collins right there in the 115th position. Ivan Rodriguez at 120. And again, catchers, the catchers do more than just hit. And so again, their numbers aren't that of a center fielder or somebody else. There's Reggie Jackson. What's Reggie Jackson own but the record for strikeouts in Major League Baseball? Mr. October. There's Perez, there's Bench, Boudreaux, there's Aparicio, Smith, Stargell, Fisk, Trammell, Carter. Just going through these names. And then, of course, the tail end of the list over here. Rizzuto, McCarthy, Wallace, Jackson, Farrow, Kelly, Ward, Pee Wee Reese, Mazeroski, White, Ewing, Evers, Tinker, Jennings, President Frank Chance, and there is our man, Ray Schoch. And so, there you have it. There is Beantown 62's Hall of Fame numbers, and so the gods of the Hall of Fame, according to the numbers and what they produced in their career, would be number 1, Stan Musial, number 2, Ted Williams, number 3, Hank Aaron, number 4 is Gehrig, and number 5 being Babe Ruth. And so I would say, if you ask Beantown 62, those are the top 5 players, again, for hitters and swinging the lumbers in the Hall of Fame, and everybody else falls where they fall. And so, as we get into our debate on Harold Baines and should Harold Baines be in the Hall of Fame, I think anybody that says, and I know there's some popularity with this, but to say that Harold Baines is undeserving to be in the Hall of Fame, I think is ludicrous. I think it's ridiculous. When you look at the players, are you going to tell me that Reggie Jackson, that Ivan Rodriguez shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame? Johnny Bench, Gary Carter, Trammell, Fisk, Stargell, Smith shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame? I think you really have to look at this, and I think you really have to check in with reality and realize that, you know what, Harold Baines is not that bad. I understand he's not a popular player. I understand he played on a really poor White Sox team for most of his career. And I understand he was a DH, but you cannot take away the man's accomplishments for what he did. And again, what I'd like to do is go in here and just start inserting some of these players. You know, everybody says, should Fred Lynn be in the Hall of Fame? Of course, my Boston people think he should. So if I punch his numbers in here, where would Fred Lynn fall on the list of players? It'd be fun to find out. I have this as a spreadsheet. If anybody out there, any of you, would like to have a copy of the spreadsheet, you can play with these numbers any different ways. You know, there's a lot of things I didn't include in here. I felt like for speed aspect, putting the triples at 3 gave a definite advantage to somebody that was a speed demon and got a bunch of triples. Of course, the home run hitters got a big advantage with the 4 multiplier on the home runs and stuff. I just didn't want to go through and try to figure out a formula to put everything in there. I just tried to take this down to a hitting category. And so this is getting really long. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, this is in this whole Hall of Fame week in YouTube, Hall of Fame, man, you guys are really kicking it. Beantown 62 will not be participating in a list. I just haven't been doing this long enough to know all of the great channels that are out there. I don't feel that I should be throwing stuff in my opinion is, oh, this guy should be in. You all have great channels as far as I'm concerned. I enjoy all of you. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say that one or the other should be in a Hall of Fame. I really just getting to know most of you guys, have really enjoyed the ride that I've been on doing this. And we'll continue to have fun with it. Again, this is my little rebuttal, Hall of Fame rebuttal, and this is my little defense of Harold. And again, I've joined with the fun with everybody else. Right behind here, I've got my properly inserted Harold Baines in there, and and again, I should have to take him out and clean him off and clean up that card. But it's fun to do that. But reality, really. When you start putting our opinions out there, and again, they're opinions, Beantown 62 will base his opinion off of the body of work that a player does and who he is and how he stacks up with his peers. And how Harold Baines is out of the Hall of Fame is right there in the middle of the road. With the body of work from a hitting standpoint. And so, again, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to get out of here. We're coming up on a stinking 30-minute video. So, like it if you like. Let's see some dislikes. Maybe I may upset everybody because I'm going to be the guy that will stick up for Harold Baines. And so, whatever. It's all good. Give me some comments. And again, if you have any interest in the spreadsheet, would like to get it, tinker with it, whatever, I'll shoot it your way. So, we're out of here. Y'all have a great evening. Later, dude.